Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching. The void screamed silence. Beyond the observation deck of the Terran Deep Space Monitoring Station Olympus, the stars hung like scattered diamonds against black velvet. But Commander Adrian Voss knew better. Those weren't just stars anymore. They were witnesses to humanity's greatest humiliation. "Transmission incoming," called out technical specialist Riley Chen from her station, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "It's the Galactic Council, again." Voss didn't turn from the viewport. In the reflection, he could see the tension carved into his weathered features. 47 years old, 23 of them spent watching Earth's isolation deepen with each passing year. Put it through. The central display flickered to life, revealing the familiar amphitheater of the Galactic Council chamber. Hundreds of species arranged in concentric circles, all united in their shared contempt for the small blue world that had dared to reach beyond its solar system. High Arbiter Zixthara, a towering crystalline being whose form shifted between states of matter, spoke in harmonics that the Universal Translator struggled to process. "The human quarantine remains in effect. Your species continues to demonstrate the violent tendencies that necessitated your isolation 12 solar cycles ago." Voss clenched his jaw. 12 years. 12 years since first contact had gone catastrophically wrong. The Terran diplomatic vessel had been destroyed in what Earth claimed was an accident, but the galaxy had seen it as an act of aggression. The quarantine field had been erected within days, trapping humanity in their own system like insects in amber. "The evidence remains clear," continued Zixthara. "Your species lacks the evolutionary maturity for galactic citizenship. The quarantine will remain until such time as... Until such time as what?" Voss snapped, finally turning to face the display. "Until we evolve into something more palatable, until we forget how to defend ourselves." A ripple of disturbed harmonics echoed through the council chamber. Near the front, Ambassador Kethvar of the Hegemony Coalition, a species that resembled upright mantises with bioluminescent carapaces, clicked his mandibles in what passed for amusement. "The human speaks of defense," Kethvar intoned, "yet your people fired upon a diplomatic vessel without provocation. The galaxy remembers, Commander Voss." "That was a malfunction." Voss's voice carried the weight of 12 years of frustration. "Our weapon systems experienced a cascade failure. We've provided every piece of evidence. Evidence can be fabricated," said another voice. This one belonged to Fleet Admiral Tamora, a serpentine Naxari whose scales shimmered with embedded technology. "Your species has proven adept at deception." The display began to flicker as more council members joined the condemnation. The ethereal collective, beings of pure energy contained within geometric forms, pulsed with disapproval. The Zephyrian hive mind, a species that communicated through pheromone clouds, released chemical signatures that the translator interpreted as disgust. "The judgment stands," Zixthara declared. "Earth remains under quarantine. This channel will not be opened again." The transmission cut, leaving the monitoring station in oppressive silence. Voss stared at the blank screen, his reflection now the only image it contained. "Sir," Riley said quietly, "we've got incoming priority transmission from Earth Command." The screen flickered again, this time revealing the familiar surroundings of the Terran Military Command Center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Fleet Admiral Patricia Hartwell appeared, her silver hair pulled back in the regulation style that had become her signature over the past decade. "Adrian," she said without preamble, "I need you to return to Earth immediately. We're activating Project Helios." Voss felt his blood turn to ice. "Ma'am, Project Helios was classified as theoretical research only. The power requirements alone." "The power requirements have been solved," Hartwell interrupted. "Dr. Kenji Nakamura's team achieved stable fusion cascade 3 weeks ago. We're ready to proceed." Behind Hartwell, Voss could see the bustle of activity that indicated a major operation in progress. Officers moved with purpose, their faces set with the determination of those who had finally been given a chance to act after years of enforced passivity. "Admiral," Voss said carefully, "if we're talking about what I think we're talking about, the galactic response will be—" "The galactic response," Hartwell said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority, "is exactly what we're counting on. Pack your gear, Commander. You leave in 6 hours." The transmission ended, leaving Voss alone with his thoughts and the vast emptiness of space. Project HELIOS. He'd been part of the initial planning committee 7 years ago, when it was nothing more than a desperate scientist's fever dream. The idea had been simple in concept, nightmarish in execution. If humanity couldn't break the quarantine through diplomacy, they would break it through demonstration. Riley cleared her throat. "Sir, what's Project HELIOS?" Voss turned to look at her, noting the concern in her dark eyes. Riley was young, barely 25, and had spent her entire adult life under the quarantine. She didn't remember what it felt like to look up at the stars and dream of reaching them. "It's a way home," he said finally. "Or it's the end of everything we've built. I'm not sure which." The journey back to Earth took 18 hours in the high-speed courier ship Aurora. Voss spent most of the trip reviewing classified files that made his blood run cold. The technical specifications alone were staggering. Project HELIOS wasn't just a weapons system, it was a complete reimagining of humanity's relationship with the cosmos. Earth grew larger in the viewport as they approached, a blue marble suspended in the void. The quarantine field was invisible to the naked eye, but Voss could feel its presence like a weight pressing down on his chest. Somewhere out there, automated monitoring stations tracked every movement, every transmission, every breath Earth took. The Aurora docked at Lunar Station, humanity's primary orbital facility. As Voss disembarked, he was met by Colonel Marcus Drake, a man he'd served with during the initial contact disasters. Drake's face bore the scars of that first encounter, 3 parallel lines across his left cheek, where a hegemony energy weapon had nearly killed him. "Good to see you, Adrian," Drake said, clasping Voss's shoulder, "though I wish it were under better circumstances." "How bad is it?" Voss asked as they walked through the station's corridors. "Bad enough that we're willing to risk everything on a theoretical physics experiment." Drake's voice carried a bitter edge. "The latest intelligence suggests the Council is planning to tighten the quarantine. They're talking about reducing our allowed resource gathering to subsistence levels." Voss stopped walking. "They want to starve us out." "Slowly. Over generations. Turn us into a cautionary tale for other species that might get ideas about independence." Drake resumed walking, his pace brisk. "The transport to Earth leaves in an hour. Hartwell wants you in the briefing room as soon as you arrive." The ride down to Earth's surface was conducted in silence. Voss stared out at the planet he'd been away from for 3 years, noting the changes. New cities dotted the landscape, their architecture more vertical than ever before. With nowhere to expand but inward, humanity had learned to build up, to maximize every square meter of their prison. The transport landed at Peterson Space Force Base, and Voss was immediately escorted to a nondescript building that hummed with electromagnetic shielding. The security checkpoint was unlike anything he'd seen before. Biometric scanners, quantum encryption verifiers, and devices he couldn't identify. "Welcome to the HELIOS facility," said a voice behind him. Voss turned to see Dr. Kenji Nakamura, the man whose theoretical work had made Project HELIOS possible. Nakamura was smaller than Voss had expected, with graying hair and eyes that seemed to hold too much knowledge. "Dr. Nakamura," Voss said, extending his hand, "I've read your papers. Brilliant work." Nakamura shook his hand, but his expression remained grim. brilliant and terrifying. Come, Admiral Hartwell is waiting. They descended into the facility's depths, past levels of security that made Voss's head spin. Finally, they reached a vast chamber that took his breath away. The HELIOS array stretched before them, a combination of technology and engineering that defied easy description. At its heart stood a massive fusion reactor, but not like any Voss had seen before. This one pulsed with contained stellar fire, its energy channeled through crystalline conduits that seemed to bend space itself. Around it, arrays of gravitational manipulators created visible distortions in the air, while quantum processors hummed with calculations that required dimensions beyond human comprehension. Impressive, isn't it? Admiral Hartwell's voice carried from behind them. She approached with a tablet in her hands, her face set in the expression of someone who had made an irrevocable decision. Dr. Nakamura, would you care to explain what we're looking at? Nakamura gestured towards the array. Project Helios is based on a simple principle. If we can't leave our solar system, we'll bring the galaxy to us. The fusion reactor you see generates enough energy to power a small city. That energy is channeled through gravitational lensing arrays that can focus it into a coherent beam. A beam that can do what, exactly? Voss asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Reach any point in the galaxy instantaneously, Nakamura replied. The energy travels through folded space-time, bypassing the limitations of light speed. We can target any location with precision down to the molecular level. Voss felt his mouth go dry. You're talking about a weapon that can strike anywhere in the galaxy. We're talking about a communications array, Hartwell corrected. The energy beam can be modulated to carry information, to establish instantaneous contact with any civilization in the galaxy. It's also capable of creating gravitational anomalies that can disrupt the quarantine field. And if necessary, Nakamura added quietly, it can be used as a demonstration of force. The implications crashed over Voss like a tidal wave. Humanity hadn't just built a weapon, they'd built a game changer. The technology represented a leap forward that would fundamentally alter the balance of power in the galaxy. The Council doesn't know about this, Voss said. It wasn't a question. The Council believes we're still trying to build fusion reactors for civilian power, Hartwell replied. They've monitored our progress and dismissed it as primitive. They don't understand that we've been working on the real project in shielded facilities like this one. A technician approached, her face flushed with excitement. Admiral, we've achieved stable resonance cascade. The array is ready for first test. Hartwell nodded. Commander Voss, you'll observe from the control room. Dr. Nakamura, initiate the sequence. They moved to an observation deck overlooking the array. Below them, hundreds of technicians worked at stations that monitored every aspect of the system. The fusion reactor's hum grew deeper, more resonant, as its output increased. First test will be a demonstration of range, Nakamura explained. We're going to send a pulse to Alpha Centauri and back. The energy signature will be unmistakable. Voss watched as the gravitational lensing arrays began to rotate, focusing the reactor's output into a beam that existed in dimensions beyond normal space. The air itself seemed to ripple as space-time bent around the focusing mechanism. Initiating pulse, a technician announced. Target acquired. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The world went white. When Voss's vision cleared, the chamber was filled with cheers. The technicians were embracing each other, their faces bright with triumph. On the main display, telemetry showed the pulse's journey to Alpha Centauri and back in less than a second. Successful test, Nakamura said, but his voice carried no celebration. The system works as designed. And now? Voss asked. Hartwell's expression was grim. Now we give the galaxy a choice. They can acknowledge our right to exist as equals, or they can learn what humans are truly capable of when pushed to the edge. The message was sent 3 days later. Not through normal diplomatic channels, but through the HELIOS array itself. The beam carried humanity's ultimatum to every major population center in the galaxy simultaneously, bypassing the quarantine field as if it didn't exist. The response was immediate and explosive. In the Galactic Council chamber, panic ruled. Species that had never shown fear were now huddling in defensive formations, their representatives speaking in urgent, overlapping voices. The universal translator struggled to keep up with the cacophony of alarm. "This is impossible," High Arbiter Zika Thara declared, her crystalline form flickering between states of matter with unprecedented speed. "The quarantine field is impenetrable. No signal can breach it." Yet their message reached us. Ambassador Kethvar replied, his mandibles clicking in distress. "They've transmitted directly to our homeworlds, to our fleet positions, to our most secure installations. The humans have developed technology that we don't understand." Fleet Admiral Tamora's scales had shifted to a deep red, indicating extreme agitation. "This changes everything. If they can transmit through the quarantine field, they can potentially transport matter as well. Their isolation is no longer guaranteed." On the main display, the human message played again. Commander Voss appeared, his uniform crisp, his bearing military. Behind him, the HELIOS array pulsed with contained power. "Citizens of the galaxy," Voss said, his voice carrying across countless worlds. "For 12 years, humanity has been held in isolation based on a lie. We did not attack your diplomatic vessel. We provided evidence of system malfunction, evidence that was ignored in favor of prejudice and fear." The message continued, outlining humanity's case with methodical precision. But it was the final portion that sent shockwaves through the galactic community. "We have developed the capability to reach any point in the galaxy instantaneously," Voss continued. "This technology could revolutionize transportation, communication, and commerce. We offer it freely to any species willing to acknowledge our right to exist as equals." The display shifted, showing the technical specifications of the HELIOS array. The data was incomplete, but what was revealed made the assembled aliens gasp in unison. "However," Voss said, his tone hardening, "we will not remain caged. The quarantine field will be dissolved, or we will dissolve it ourselves. You have 72 hours to decide." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not only developed technology that surpassed anything in the galaxy, but they were willing to use it. "This is blackmail," declared Senator Vixitl of the Ethereal Collective, his energy form pulsing with indignation. "They threaten us with their primitive aggression." "Do they?" asked a new voice. All eyes turned to see philosopher Jendar of the Ancient Ones, a species so old that their homeworld had been consumed by their dying star eons ago. They existed now as pure consciousness, inhabiting mechanical bodies of their own design. "Explain," Zixathara commanded. Jendar's mechanical form clicked as it processed information. "I have analyzed their message. At no point do they threaten violence. They offer technology, they demand recognition, and they state their intention to break free of confinement. This is not aggression. It is evolution." "Evolution?" Kethvar's mandibles clicked in confusion. "They're threatening to destroy the quarantine field." "The quarantine field," Jendar replied, "was always a temporary measure. It was designed to contain a primitive species until they could demonstrate readiness for galactic citizenship. The humans have just demonstrated capabilities that exceed our own." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species called for immediate military action. Others demanded negotiation. A few suggested retreat, pulling back to their homeworlds until the situation could be resolved. But in the depths of space, humanity's demonstration was just beginning. The first target was an automated monitoring station on the edge of the Sol system. The HELIOS array fired, and the station simply ceased. Not destroyed, not exploded, it ceased to exist, as if it had never been there at all. Quantum dissolution, Dr. Nakamura explained to the assembled command staff. The beam disrupts the fundamental forces holding matter together. The atoms don't explode, they simply forget how to be atoms. The second target was a section of the quarantine field itself. The beam carved a hole through the energy barrier, creating a gap that could accommodate a small fleet. The gap remained open, a wound in the galaxy's certainty. Gravitational anchoring, Nakamura continued. The beam creates a stable tear in space-time. The quarantine field can't repair itself because the damage exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The third target was the most ambitious. The beam reached across the galaxy to the Hegemony Coalition's primary fleet base, passing through their shields as if they were made of paper. It didn't destroy anything. It simply left a mark, a perfect circle carved into the station's hull with microscopic precision. Selective matter displacement, Nakamura said. We can remove any material we choose while leaving the rest untouched. We could have taken out their entire fleet, but we chose to leave a calling card instead. The message was clear. Humanity could strike anywhere, anytime, with perfect precision. The quarantine was meaningless. The galaxy's assumptions about human capability were obsolete. In the council chamber, the debate had turned to raw panic. Fleet Admiral Tamora was calling for immediate military response, while Ambassador Kethva advocated for negotiation. The ethereal collective had withdrawn entirely, their energy forms flickering with uncertainty. But it was High Arbiter Zix Thara who spoke the words that changed everything. We have 48 hours remaining, she said, her crystalline form now a dull gray. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that we cannot match or counter. Our choices are simple: negotiate or face the consequences of our failure to understand what we were truly dealing with. The vote was close, but the pragmatists won. The galaxy would negotiate. The meeting was held in neutral space, aboard a diplomatic vessel that had been hastily constructed for the occasion. The ship itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, with environmental systems adapted for dozens of different species. Commander Voss arrived aboard the Terran vessel Phoenix, a ship that had been modified to showcase humanity's new capabilities. The Phoenix moved through space without visible propulsion, its hull rippling with energy patterns that defied conventional understanding. Impressive, Admiral Hartwell said as they approached the diplomatic vessel. They built this in less than 48 hours. When the galaxy is motivated, they can accomplish miracles. The question is whether they're motivated by fear or respect, Voss replied. He was dressed in his formal uniform, but carried no weapons. The Phoenix itself was weapon enough. The docking process was tense. The diplomatic vessel's sensors couldn't penetrate the Phoenix's hull, couldn't analyze its power systems, couldn't predict its capabilities. For species accustomed to knowing everything about potential threats, the uncertainty was maddening. Voss was escorted to the main negotiation chamber, a vast space filled with the representatives of nearly every major galactic civilization. The air hummed with translation fields, environmental controls, and the barely contained tension of beings who had been forced to acknowledge their own limitations. High Arbiter Zixathara presided over the gathering, her crystalline form now a deep blue that indicated resignation. Commander Voss, she began. We have come to discuss the terms of humanity's integration into galactic society. Have you? Voss asked, taking his seat at the table. Or have you come to discuss the terms of your surrender? The chamber fell silent. Ambassador Kethvar's mandibles clicked nervously. Fleet Admiral Tamora's scales shifted to a pale yellow. "We prefer to think of it as mutual recognition," Zixithara replied carefully. "Your species has demonstrated capabilities that we did not anticipate. Perhaps we were hasty in our initial assessment." Voss smiled, and somehow that expression was more unsettling than any weapon. 12 years, High Arbiter. 12 years of isolation, of stagnation, of watching our children grow up in a cage. And now you want to discuss mutual recognition? What do you want? The question came from philosopher Jendar, whose mechanical form leaned forward with interest. "Your species has the power to dictate terms. What are your demands?" Voss was quiet for a long moment, letting the tension build. Then he spoke, his voice carrying weight of humanity's accumulated frustration. "We want what every species in this chamber takes for granted," he said. "The right to explore, to trade, to grow, to make our own mistakes and learn from them. We want the quarantine field dismantled completely. We want full access to galactic trade routes and diplomatic channels. We want the right to establish colonies beyond our home system." "And in return?" Zixithara asked. "In return," Voss said, "we offer you the stars." The negotiations took 3 days. Humanity's demands were not unreasonable, but they were comprehensive. The quarantine field would be dismantled. Earth would be granted full membership in the Galactic Council. Human colonies would be permitted in 17 designated systems. But the real prize was the technology. The HELIOS array, Dr. Nakamura explained to the assembled alien scientists, represents a fundamental breakthrough in applied physics. Instantaneous communication across galactic distances, precise matter manipulation at the quantum level, stable space-time folding that makes traditional faster-than-light travel obsolete. The aliens listened with the intensity of beings who realized they were witnessing a paradigm shift. The technology would revolutionize everything: transportation, communication, manufacturing, even the nature of warfare itself. "Why share this with us?" asked Chief Engineer Hixiton of the Zephyrian hive mind. "You could maintain your technological advantage, use it to dominate the galaxy." Voss answered before Nakamura could respond. "Because domination through superior technology is exactly what you accused us of 12 years ago. We're not interested in ruling the galaxy. We're interested in being part of it." The final treaty was signed in the same chamber where humanity had been condemned to isolation. The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy, a symbolic end to an era of fear and mistrust. As the quarantine field dissolved, its energy patterns dissipating into the cosmic background radiation, Voss stood on the observation deck of the Phoenix and watched the stars become reachable again. "It's over," Admiral Hartwell said, joining him at the viewport. "The isolation, the fear, the uncertainty, it's all over." "No," Voss replied, his voice thoughtful. "It's just beginning. We've proven we can match the galaxy's technology. Now we have to prove we can match their wisdom." The first human exploration fleets launched 6 months later. The colonies that followed were models of cooperation, with human settlers working alongside alien residents to build something new. The HELIOS array technology spread throughout the galaxy, transforming civilization itself. But perhaps the most important change was philosophical. Humanity had shown that a species could evolve beyond its initial limitations. That isolation could breed innovation rather than stagnation. The galaxy learned to look at other quarantined species with new eyes, to see potential rather than just threat. Years later, when historians studied the period known as the Great Isolation, they would mark it as the moment when the galaxy truly became galactic, not because humanity had conquered it, but because humanity had forced it to confront its own assumptions about progress, growth, and the nature of civilization itself. The message that had started it all, humanity's ultimatum to the galaxy, became required study in diplomatic schools across 1,000 worlds, not as an example of successful coercion, but as a demonstration of what could be achieved when a species refused to accept limitations imposed by others. Commander Adrian Voss retired from active duty 2 years after the treaty signing. He spent his final years on New Geneva, a human colony in the Proxima Centauri system, watching children play in gardens that grew under an alien sun. They played games that incorporated both human and alien elements, spoke languages that mixed Terran and Galactic dialects, and dreamed of futures that spanned the stars. When asked about his role in humanity's liberation, Voss would always give the same answer. We didn't break the quarantine. We broke the assumption that we belonged in one. The galaxy had learned to fear human determination, but in the end, what changed everything was not humanity's willingness to fight, but their refusal to accept defeat. Project Helios had given humanity the power to reach anywhere in the galaxy instantaneously. But the real victory was simpler. They had earned the right to call that galaxy home. As the stars wheeled overhead, no longer forbidden but full of promise, the children of Earth and the children of 1,000 worlds played together in the cosmic dawn, building tomorrow with the tools of hope and the strength of those who had dared to say, "We belong here too." The exile was over. The future had begun. Hey there, space human. I'm really curious about your thoughts on this video. Drop a quick comment and let me know what's on your mind, or just say hi if you prefer. Either way, I'd love to hear from you. Oh, and one last thing. Every great soldier knows that to survive and become a hero, taking care of yourself is key. So before you go, check the pinned comment. Trust me, it's important. And I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.